Canada is not amused with Donald Trump and his disaster administration. In fact, furious might be putting it politely. The mood in Canada, let's just say, is somewhere between a sternly worded letter and we are getting the hockey sticks out. Well, our Prime Minister Carney wrapped up the week with a very public show of great commitment to a great Canadian future. He headed to Trenton, Ontario, home to Canada's biggest Air Force base, talk about beefing up the Air Force and giving the military a pay bump. He even floated the idea of quadrupling military spending, making sure Canada can stand on its own feet against any threat. And yes, there was a not so subtle wink that one of those threats might be just our friendly neighbor to the south. Carney told the crowd that a new world order is taking shape. A clear jab at how the orange idiot is tearing up old post-World War II security and trade alliances. Canada, as a global energy heavyweight, now has to look for fresh alliances. And spoiler alert, the guest list might not include the United States. Let's listen to what Carney had to say.
We're living in an increasingly dangerous and divided world. The international order, built after the Second World War and reshaped following the Cold War, is under pressure. Russia is emboldened. China is more assertive. The long-held view that Canada's geographic location will protect us is becoming archaic. Our Arctic waters are increasingly open, and there have been rapid advances in cyber, artificial intelligence, quantum, and advanced missile capabilities. Climate change is making our country more vulnerable. The Arctic's melting. Our wildfires and floods are more frequent and devastating. And these are all threats to which the Canadian Armed Forces responds. The Canadian Forces keep our people and communities safe through major disasters. I'll give examples. This summer, Canadian Forces have helped communities in Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, soon Newfoundland and Labrador, including already by safely evacuating over 6,000 Canadians. This week alone, Canadian Forces members, originally from CFB Trenton, airdropped life-saving humanitarian aid into Gaza. Canadian Armed Forces are standing guard in Latvia and continue to deploy around the world to stand with our allies in defense of peace and security. Now, in addition to the substantial pay raises, we're focused on providing our CAF members with the resources that they need and deserve. Canada's new government recognizes that our military infrastructure and equipment have aged, hindering our military preparedness. We recognize that only one of our 4 submarines is seaworthy, that less than half our maritime fleet and land vehicles are operational. So we're modernizing our military equipment and technology. We're building up our own defense and security industries and diversifying those international defense partnerships. With investments of over $9 billion this year, Canada will reach our 2% NATO pledge, 2% of GDP NATO pledge, half a decade before schedule. And we will further accelerate our investments in years to come. At the NATO summit earlier this year in The Hague, the Minister and I announced Canada's intention to meet the new defense investment pledge of 5% of annual GDP over the next decade by 2035. And to put that into context, our total spending on defense and security will quadruple by the end of this decade relative to 2023-24 levels. Now, we are laser focused on ensuring that this spending has the maximum impact on behalf of all Canadians. That means working with the best partners. It means getting maximum value for money with the greatest benefit for jobs and economic activity here in Canada. And that's why in June we concluded the new EU-Canada Security and Defence Partnership to advance Canada's participation in the European Security Initiative and Rearm Europe plan. This will give us better access to European defence partners for our needs, and it will give our defence suppliers greater opportunities to help supply Europe's needs. We are also in the process of creating a new defence procurement agency to move at pace to get our armed forces the equipment that they need when they need it. And our investments in defence will expand Canada's industrial capacity so we can equip Canadian armed forces using Canadian steel, Canadian aluminum, Canadian critical minerals, Canadian cyber, and Canadian lumber. We will increase our security presence around the world, including to protect NATO's eastern flank, and by protecting Canada, we will protect NATO's western flank.
So let's say, hypothetically, if we would really considering it, what's in it for Canada? Well, obviously, mostly a big, shiny new market. The only reason this is even on the radar is that our main trading partner, the US, is currently having the tariff stick at us and looks more and more like they have turned into an unreliable trading partner. I also strongly believe that the US has turned into a totalitarian fascism country, and therefore I would rethink trading with them. If the American market would disappear, well, we need another one to open up. And Europe looks very inviting. It's a mature economy that likes a lot of what we sell, and we like a lot of what they sell. The two economies fit together quite nicely. The obvious snag, well, the Atlantic Ocean. It's hard to beat the convenience of selling to a neighbor you can drive to in a pickup truck. But here's the thing. We already have a trade deal with Europe. It's called CETA. If we join the EU, that would be more than just free trade. EU membership means no tariffs and the same rules across the board. No surprise paperwork, no different safety labels, no head scratching over chicken export rules. Sure, we would have to balance to adapt to their rules, but also would get a lot of benefits. But compared to CETA, it's like moving from a friend with benefits arrangement to a full-on marriage. The trouble is, we've had CETA for almost a decade and haven't really used it to the max. Why? Well, the US is too close, too easy, too tempting, too everything. However, if we joined the EU's 450 million people and add our own 40 million, we are suddenly be part of one of the few groups big enough to push back against heavyweights like the US, China, or even Russia. Canada alone is a polite voice in the crowd, but Canada in the EU would actually grab the mic. We would have parliamentarians, a seat on the EU Council. To me, a big draw is that we would be joining a club of wealthy democracies, a species that feels like it's shrinking. But would it be even possible for Canada to join, even though Canada is not in Europe? Well, actually, it is. Let me explain. Best example is Turkey. Despite that Turkey's territory is mostly in Asia, and just only a small part is somewhat in Europe, there have been negotiations of joining the EU in 2005. However, that slowed down because of concerns regarding human rights and the execution of rule of law, and not based on territory. Overall, I would say on paper, Canada ticks all the boxes. A stable democracy and the ability to adapt to the EU giant bundle of laws and regulations built up since 1957. It wouldn't happen overnight, but in theory it could be done. There is, however, quite a challenge, because if we really want to ramp up export to Europe, we need bigger ports and more investment in infrastructure. Basically, a maritime makeover. However, a recent poll of Abacus data found that 46% of Canadians would support joining the EU. So joining the EU is clearly on the mind of many Canadians. Will it ever happen? Well, I guess we will see. Please let us know in the comments, what do you think about it? Would you support Canada joining the EU? We respond to every thought and every story you share. For more real news, facts and viewpoints to counterbalance the demagogy of the right-wing media, please like and subscribe. It goes a long way to help the channel. So, till next time, I'm Wilfried Lemkuler from Europe Curious.
Together, your tariff made us strong, and so you know you're not so great. There's not a snowball's chance in hell will be your 51st state. We really need our resources for more than we need you, so now just go. Walk out the door. We do not need you. You're not welcome anymore. Weren't you the one who instigated these trade fights? You'll soon grow to regret it when we turn off your lights in the dark. We will survive. As long as we can think and work, we know we'll stay alive. We have all we really need. We can live without your greed. We will survive. We will survive. There's been a change. It's time anew. We're not that fledgling little country stealing all of you. We are now a nation proud that is happy to be free. You didn't realize you gave us our own identity, so now just go. We will survive. As long as we can think and work, we know we'll stay alive. Yeah, but all we really need, we can live without your greed. We will survive. We will survive. We will survive.
51st state, my fucking ass. Go on, Canada.